Hello, everyone. Welcome to another NinjaOne webinar. I am Jonathan Crow, Director of Community for NinjaOne, and my fearless partner in crime here is Jeff Hunter, our field CTO. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, Jonathan. Good to see you. Although
Good to
virtually,
see,
not in person like we got to see each other 2 weeks ago.
which was a rare event. Good to see you virtually, which we do all the time, but nevertheless, it's still great. And it's good to see all of you. Hey, David. Hey, everybody chiming in on the chat. Let us know where you're coming in from. Happy Monday to you. And since we've launched this IT misery campaign, we thought that Mondays would be the best day of the week to really start doing these webinars. Let's just get into it. Let's start the week off right. So Jeff, we're going to be talking about this is the first one in this new webinar series. We're going to be covering a variety of amazing, miserable topics. But more importantly, how to overcome that misery, right? We're not just going to dwell in it and commiserate, which we should totally do, and you're welcome to do in the chat. More importantly, though, we're going to be sharing solutions. How do we get past these things that are holding us back and making our job not so rewarding, not so efficient, not so impactful. So that's what we're going to do this morning. And thank you, everybody. We've got folks from around the world. So the Netherlands, Atlanta, Florida, the UK. We want you to take advantage of this time too to answer some questions for us and share what you've been able to do with your job, because we're not just here to speak to you and at you. We're here to learn from you too. So without further ado, let me cover the one question that everyone asks. Yes, this is being recorded, so if you have to jump out, or if there's teammates that you have that would you think you would benefit from this, you can absolutely share the recording with them afterwards. We've got some resources that we're going to share in addition to this PowerPoint, to this demo that Jeff's going to be going through. He's going to be going hands-on on some ways that you can automate some of the most time-consuming repetitive tasks. And we're also going to have a few bonus resources for you that we'll share throughout as well. And then finally, I understand that we have a prize to give you. So we will be selecting one lucky attendee to get a prize today. So, okay, let's get into it. Jeff, do you want to give a little bit more background about what you do at NinjaOne and what you were doing prior to Ninja?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been at NinjaOne for almost 5 years now. I have been the field CTO for a little over a year, and that means that I do a lot of the webinars. If you've ever attended a NinjaOne webinar in the past, good chance that you saw me on it. I'm also the disembodied voice that you hear on some of the product demonstration videos that we put on our YouTube channel, do some trade shows and speaking slots. So that's kind of my role here at NinjaOne. Before I did the field CTO role, or currently am doing the field CTO role, I was a sales engineer. And so I was a sales engineer for 3.5 years or so here at Ninja. I was the third sales engineer on staff, and then we rapidly grew to, I think, over 30 at the time that I moved over into doing all the webinars. Before I did that, I was the director of technical services for a movie theater chain. And so a lot of the examples that I'll be talking about today are drawn from that experience, the things that I had to do without a tool like NinjaOne, with a lot of different point solutions, and hopefully give you some insight into the things that I didn't like, the things that made me miserable on a Monday and any other day ending in Y, and what I did to try and solve them, or if I had a tool like NinjaOne, what I would have done to make my life a lot easier.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Jeff. Definitely recommend. I'm sure a lot of the people here have been, if you've seen anything that NinjaOne's put out there, you've seen Jeff walking through the product and sharing his expertise. I am director of community, and I wrangle our Discord server, which if you haven't joined that yet, we can provide you with a link to come check it out. It's up to, I think we're about to cross 10,000 members now, which is insane. A lot of folks that are sharing helpful ninja tips, answering questions, sharing scripts, all that good stuff. And I'm also hopping on webinars from time to time, and I've got some future ones that I'll tell you about at the end of this one that are coming up that I'm really excited about. So first, okay, let's kick it off. Yeah, Max, Discord link for sure. Okay, cool. We'll get it to you. What are the most, question for everybody here, what are the most repetitive, time consuming tasks that you deal with on a regular basis that you would love to automate? What's really killing you right now? That annoying, you're walking in on Monday, you know you're going to get hit with these things and you really just want to automate them away if you could. What are those things? We're going to be launching a poll right now. Thanks, JP, for launching this one. It is open-ended, so go for it. Drop in there. Would love to see these answers. We'll pull some up on screen here in just a little bit. And yeah, feel free to add things into the chat as well. And if you have a question throughout any of this at all, make sure to use the Q&A panel so we don't miss it. Okay, so while you guys are answering that, I just wanted to pull up some stats here to put things in perspective. These things, we don't need to tell you that that there's repetitive, monotonous stuff that's taking up a lot of your time that could be better utilized elsewhere, but good to have some numbers attached to things, right? So according to a recent report I dug up, low-level tasks can eat up to 30% of IT department's time on average. Maybe some of you are thinking 30%, that seems low or seems high. I don't know. Let us know in the chat. But what we found in following up with folks after they've been using Ninja for a while, and again, this doesn't have to be limited to just using Ninja. I mean, this is really more about an IT team having tools and processes and people in place that they are going to make a concerted effort to start taking these things out. They found that 22% of tickets can actually, when you start taking an automation mindset and really go at this with intention, you can drop 22% of your tickets down, no cost. And why is that important? Because, hey, time is money for MSPs. Time is also your most valuable resource in internal IT departments as well. All right. And Jeff, I'm going to kick this one over to you to talk about the most miserable. And I'm curious to see what it looks like. We've got about 73 folks. That's awesome. Thank you for taking the time to answer the question. I'm going to peek in there and see what those answers are. But while we're doing that, Jeff, you thought about this question and you came up with these 3 categories. You want to talk about these a little bit?
Yeah, so these are things that when I was in the business of managing endpoints on the day-to-day, these were the things that I dealt with the most, that I felt ate up the most amount of time, that I really wish I could have automated in some way. A lot of repetitive things that I had to just constantly deal with. I've mentioned this in the past, my number one least favorite task that I ever had to perform on a really repetitive basis when I was working for the movie theater chain was device provisioning. New laptops, new workstations, even new servers. The process of configuring those devices was incredibly manual, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about how you can automate that using NinjaOne in a couple different ways. Another broad topic was end user requests. I was always getting these requests from people dealing with common troubleshooting issues, and I then had to become directly involved, taken away from whatever I was working on that was more strategic, that was quite honestly probably more important. And so we'll talk a little bit about how we can also provide the tools to the end user to help them try to deal with the issue directly rather than getting a ticket open without getting somebody from the help desk involved to essentially do their work for them. And then lastly, it was data entry, which is kind of a broad brush, but ultimately I needed information on a variety of topics. I needed to surface that information on a repetitive basis. And so being able to have a process where that data gets processed and then is made available to the technician or to the system administrator for reporting purposes. I hated having to collate reports every single month. And so we'll talk a little bit about how we can use scripting and the API and NinjaOne as a platform to automate some of what we need to do on a regular basis, surface that information more directly so that there's less manual processing that needs to be done, and that you're more easily able to just look, check a box, confirm that the task was done for the month. You have a good report for that, and then move on to the next task. So those are kind of the broad brushes there of just general topics. We've got several examples kind of falling under each of these categories. But these, for me, these are the 3 things that any opportunity to automate a task that fell into one of these 3 categories, I jumped at because I knew anything that I was having to do more than once or twice, go ahead, automate it. Once it becomes a repeatable process, you just need to take care of it so that way you can remain free to focus again on the more big picture strategic issues that can't be automated, that require somebody's direct time and attention.
So thank you, Jeff. I think that the audience is right there with you with some of these categories. So I was looking and scrolling through the results here, and we'll find like maybe we can get like a word cloud or something going on. But man, patching and failed patches was by far the largest one that I'm seeing right here. User onboarding, another huge one. Software deployment. So yeah, device deployment. Diane, you're right on there. You're not alone. And so it sounds like a lot of folks are having the same kinds of issues. So let's get into it. I'm going to stop sharing here, and Jeff, I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, and actually, I'm going to slightly change course here because there was a lot of people talking about failed patching.
Mhm.
And so I figured I'd go ahead and show a new way in the 8.0 release. So you do need to have NinjaOne 8.0 for this to work. Everybody should have that by the end of March. We're currently in the rollout. But if you did want to automate reattempts of failed patches, one thing you can do here, actually, I'll go into a different environment, is you can use a device search group here, and you can find wherever you have devices that have a failed patch, just like this. And we'll use an operating system patch just for the sake of example. We
Oh,
can
and
then
Jeff,
save that. Oh, sorry, go ahead. Am I not sharing?
yeah, yeah, we
Okay,
got your screen that says Jeff.
great. Here, let's redo that again. This time with screen.
There we go.
Um, so right here, I've created a
Oh, sorry.
filter.
Before you go too much further,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be the guy. I am getting on in my years. My eyes, my peepers aren't what they used to be. This time with screen, can also you enhance?
Let's go. I did put all these at
Thank you.
125%, but you mentioned we're getting on the years. We're up to 150 now. Uh,
I appreciate it.
Here, I'll make this consistent across the board here. So there we go. All four tabs. Uh, so right here, what we've done, and I'll reset my filters here, is I have added in a filter for my device search grid for OS patches that have failed right there. And so any devices that have a failed patch would appear in this group. And I can save that. And so this would be a failed OS patch group right there. I'll go ahead and save that. And so, of course, this is useful just to see it, but the real goal here is to automate across it. And so what we can do is go to administration, go to tasks, we can create a brand new task, and we can leverage a new automation within NinjaOne 8.0, which is to actually initiate patch cycles. I think it's actually under the native automations here. Actually, I'm in the wrong environment. I was not in an 8.0 environment. So if we come in here, we can go ahead and add in our automation. You can see OS patch scan, and this is across Windows, Mac OS, and Linux. Then we have the apply. We have that across Windows, Mac, and Linux. You also have the same for software patching. And so what I can do in this case is I can go ahead and say, well, let's go ahead and apply for Windows. Let's also go ahead and run a patch apply for Mac OS right here. And then we can also do the exact same thing for Linux. Because our device search group is just looking at any device that has a failed patch, we can run these automations across all three OSs, and it will only run the appropriate automation across a device that supports that script because it will be OS specific. And so right there, we have our automations. This is going to actually, I did that wrong. This is going to reattempt to install any failed patches as well as any patches that are in an approved state. And so I can go ahead and add that in there, add this in as well. And so we have all three operating systems. We're going to run patch cycles across all of them. We can then go ahead and have this occur on a recurring basis. And so we can say, hey, every 2 hours, every 3 hours, if there is a failed patch on that device, we want to rerun the patch scan or the patch apply. And so we would then go into our target section here. This one, for display purposes, I can then go ahead and target a group here. And again, the group is dynamic. So it's only going to run these patch cycles across devices that currently register as having a failed patch. And assuming that the failed patch is cleared up by these automations, it is then going to go ahead and that device would be removed from the group, and it wouldn't just run the patch cycle indefinitely. It's only running it if there is a failed patch present on the device. So just because we saw a huge volume of that, I didn't want to kind of have to wait for a different webinar for you to kind of see that there is a mechanism for you to better automate the reattempt of failed patches. So hopefully someone found that valuable. And with that, we can move on to some of our actual examples that I prepared for.
Yeah, and
So let's
actually,
go ahead.
before
Yeah,
we do, I'll interrupt you a little bit more because I think that one was
yeah.
great. So a couple of clarifying questions around patching because that was such a big topic, right? And some of these I think you're going to be getting to in terms of opportunities to use the sys tray or maybe some toast notifications, things like that. But uh, can we ask Mac users to quit Teams or Chrome so updates can be applied? You know, like getting the user to cooperate with these things. Um, Also, another follow up question from Nate: what if the device is offline at the type of the scheduled task? Is
Yeah.
that something that was addressed in 8.0? I'll let you hit
Uh,
those first.
s- yeah, absolutely. And so to the point about the device being offline, using the task method that I just put there, if the device was offline, it would not queue up and it would not run the patching automation that we saw right there. You do have a separate option for that inside of policies to where you can run immediately if missed. So if you did have this set to an actual schedule here, I can go ahead and say if, there we go. I want to run the scan immediately if the device was offline at the scheduled time. So you do have that option here inside of the patching policy. But generally, automations within NinjaOne that you're running on a recurring basis, if the device is not online at that time, it is going to wait for the next scheduled attempt, and then it will rerun at that point. And so using the tasks option that we saw earlier, the big benefit there is that you can run this on an hourly interval. So as short you can have as short an interval as every hour running a patch cycle, and there's a pretty good bet that the device is going to come online at some point during that hour, or at least one of the 24 hours that you get in a day. So that is an option. It is not going to run automatically, but based off of the recurring in nature of this running on potentially an every hour basis, I feel you have a pretty good bet here that the device is going to be captured as a part of the patching cycle. And of course, within policies, that schedule is going to respect the setting that you have checked there to where if the device is offline at the scheduled time and comes back online, it will then run the patch installation cycle or the patch scan cycle. So you've got a couple different options here, but yeah, this method here only going to run if the device is online. And just that's why we would use this recurring schedule here to make sure that we capture as many devices as we possibly can. In terms of asking Mac users to quit applications, we don't currently support that. We are working on that. We are working on a prompt so that we can say to the end user cross-platform, we need to patch these applications across Windows and Mac OS, and we need to have you close the application so that we can actually perform the job of patching the application. What you can do in the interim until we do develop that, and I am hopeful that we'll see that later this year, you can also use a template library script to request that the end user does close those applications. And so this is the display or toast message section of our template library. The template library is full of scripts created by NinjaOne engineers, and they work on maintaining them and developing new ones all the time. I think at this point now we have over 268 scripts in the template library, and we are of course endeavoring to have parity across Linux as well as Mac OS. We already have a pretty robust library of Windows PowerShell scripts. But if you just type display into the template library here, you'll see that you have a lot of options for notifying and interacting with the end user. And so in this case, I might use the display pop-up on Mac OS to go ahead and customize something asking them to close out a particular application like Teams or like Chrome, or just generally say, please go ahead and close all applications and log out of your device so that the patching cycle is able to be successfully attempted.
So, Jeff, thanks for bringing up the automation library too. I mean, for those who are of you who are using Ninja already, hopefully you know where this is and you checked it out. Like Jeff mentioned, we have a whole team that's dedicated to adding scripts to this library, vetting them, making sure that they're able to work as expected. And so there's a lot of good stuff in there. For folks who aren't using Ninja, there's actually we have our script hub too, which I've just dropped into the chat. And for every single one of those, the team has also made a tool agnostic PowerShell script version available, and so you can go to the script hub and check these things out too. Okay, and then Jonathan, thanks for mentioning this, fellow Jonathan. Uh, just mentioning, yeah, we're going to cover a ton here, and we'd love to get more into the weeds on some of these things. Let's circle back around on some of these Q&A questions. Again, if we're going fast and you have a question that you really want us to see and answer, we don't get to it in the moment. Add it to the Q&A, and we'll have some time at the end. We'll circle back. And in terms of the recording, we will send out a link afterwards.
And I did want to talk about something that Alex had mentioned here with using the run scan immediately if missed option more precisely right here is do note that your reboot options have the potential here to trigger a reboot if you run the update schedule. So if you did have this set to automatically reboot right here, not 6 hours, let's say 6 or 1 minute. If you did have this option here to automatically reboot and the update schedule ran, as soon as the device came online, and then it said, oh, you need to have a patch, you have a patch installed, you need to perform a reboot. It would then reboot, and that might not be a desired outcome. So just be aware that your reboot options here are going to be a very important factor in your update schedule, what time you run this at, and of course, if you're leveraging this particular option. So very good call out by Alex there. With that, let's go ahead and talk a little bit about our first topic, which is device onboarding. Again, this is something that I absolutely hated. It was one of those things that I think at a certain point got in my head and I just dreaded it more than it was actually like difficult to perform the job, but it was just monotonous and repetitive. So one great option here is leveraging these scheduled automations inside of a policy. If we click into our device onboarding one right here, you'll see that we have an option here to run once immediately. This is an incredibly powerful scheduling option within NinjaOne. It means that as soon as a device joins a particular policy, it is going to run all the automations that we see over on the right-hand side. So in theory, what happens is you have a brand new device, you install the NinjaOne agent on that device, and the device receives its policy, which controls all of its important settings, like what do I alert on, when do I patch, what do I patch, and then right here, what automations am I going to execute? And so we can run once immediately across the device that has joined to this policy, and then sequentially, it will run all of the automations over on the right-hand side. Now I'm using a lot of scripts from the template library. I am also using some scripts that I have just acquired over the years or written over the years. And if you are interested in that, I am going to put a link to this in the chat. So let me go into my resources for everyone. And then right there, I have my link. I'm sharing this from NinjaOne documentation. There. I'll put this in the chat right there. That should include some links as well. Let me double check here and make sure that I have this all straight. This is where the Zoom is not doing me any favors here. I had to unzoom there. But you can see it's sort of the genesis of all these scripts, where they come from the template library, hosted on Pastebin. So you have all the scripts that I'm using in that automation in this little spreadsheet here. And this will be included in the description in the YouTube video when we post the recording as well. Now I want to talk a little bit about the nature of the automations and the essentially my philosophy here behind the order in which you execute a lot of these, or why I would execute some of these. For starters, we have the changing of the power and sleep settings. The default Windows settings can often go to sleep after 10 or 15 minutes here. And so to prevent the device from going to sleep as I am attempting to provision it, I want to modify the power and sleep settings so that the device stays online. I also want to have essentially minimal user interaction. I don't want them to have to click through anything. And so what I've done is set the network discoverability so that they don't get a prompt on the right side notification bar saying, hey, you need to choose a public or a private network here. I'm just setting that for them by default. I also want to enable BitLocker here to ensure that my device is encrypted. I also want to install Dell Command Update because I tested this whole workflow on Dell machines, and so I want to make sure that I can update the firmware, make sure the BIOS is up to date, and then I also want to take a few different actions with device configuration, essentially taking the device and trying to make it a little bit more difficult to compromise. You know, if somebody potentially malicious was trying to do something they shouldn't, I want to make sure I have PowerShell 2.0 disabled, that I have SMBv1 disabled, that I have weak TLS disabled. I'm only authorizing more modern versions of TLS. And these are certainly something that you want to test in your environment. I have absolutely heard from people, especially using legacy applications, who say, actually, disabling weak TLS caused me huge problems because it ended up breaking someone's environment. The applications they were using didn't support more modern versions of TLS, and so it ended up causing a lot of problems. And so, first and foremost, I think this is a good refresher when it comes to automation. Uh, Good to test. Whatever you're going to be pushing out, you do want to do extensive testing here. The power of automation is also the danger of automation. When you're able to automate at scale and it works, great. When you automate at scale and it doesn't work, you end up causing yourself a lot more problems. So, strongly would recommend a lot of testing to ensure that the behavior that you see is exactly what you want to have happen here. And then we just have a couple other automations. I'll just point out a few here. I want to block Windows 11 on Windows 10 devices. I want to check for the Windows 11 upgrade status so that I have the detail written into a custom field of if the device is even capable of Windows 11. And I think, obviously, as time progresses on, this is something everyone needs to be more and more aware of. At a certain point, I'm sure Microsoft is going to say you have to update to Windows 11. We all know they like to essentially make that happen in the background anyway. So being sure that you know if the computer is capable of it, game plan for the future, and for the eventual end of life of Windows 10 is definitely a good thing to do. Uh, we're also renaming the device here. We're going to set an inactivity timeout. Uh, so just configuring the device. One thing you may have noticed I am not doing here is I am not installing any applications. And you certainly can go ahead and have this automation block install your applications. Because these are running sequentially, I am a big fan of using a run once immediately uh, block. Only one of those so that I don't have the potential for multiple run once immediately script blocks to step on each other and then potentially conflict. Something that's really dangerous, I think, with installing applications. If I'm trying to install an application at the same time as I'm installing another application, there's a pretty good chance that that's going to cause a failure here. So you could go ahead and add in your automations here. For example, I'll go ahead and add in Google Chrome. I could add in something like Slack. Oh, if it was in this environment, I could. So I could go ahead and add in multiple applications in here and feel pretty good about it because they are going to operate one after the other. All these scripts are operating sequentially. However, there's another option here that I do like, and that is to leverage essentially a custom fields to orchestrate the actions to happen in steps. And so what I can do here is have here we go, a custom field. And so I have right here the provision status equals checked. I want to go ahead and say if the checkbox is checked for the provision status, that indicates that my first automation is complete. I can have a script go ahead and check the box very easily saying, hey, this device is provisioned, we're ready to go. Then I can add in another custom field condition, which would be if the applications have been deployed or not. And so if I come down here and I look for, I think it was the application deployment right here, if this is not checked, then I want to go ahead and execute an automation or at least create an alert. And so what I've done here is, all right, the device is provisioned from the configuration standpoint, but its applications haven't been deployed. And so then I can go ahead and trigger something else to occur, which in this case is going to be running an automation. This could be multiple automations. I could have Chrome, I could have Slack, I could have VS Code, I could have Zoom in here, and everything is going to install sequentially. However, I'm a big fan of this tool called Ninite, which has been around for a really long time. This is actually something that I leveraged to help me with application deployment back in the day. I didn't want to have to install everything individually. And so what I did is I could come in here and create essentially a package. So let's say I want to select Google Chrome right here. I want Zoom, I want VLC, I want WinRAR, and then I can go ahead and get my Ninite installer. And so what this does is it gives you a little exe right here, and then everything is downloaded from the cloud. And one of the reasons why I like this is because this is always up to date. Ninite is essentially doing the heavy lifting of ensuring that the installer is a more recent installer versus me having to manually upload things into NinjaOne and then go ahead and, as there are new versions released, go ahead and accommodate for all of that. And so I really like this one because you know that you're getting something relatively up to date. You're getting it from a trusted source. Of course, I will say that in certain environments, Ninite is not going to be an option for you. If you're extremely security conscious, it absolutely would behoove you to upload all your installers and maintain something that is much more, secure and in your own control versus Ninite, which is, within Ninite's control. So if you need that sort of direct control, this might not be an option for you. But I really like this because it keeps everything up to date and it also allows you to package everything up. And so in here, you can see I'm going to go ahead and leverage this /silent parameter to make sure that this is going to install silently. And this is going to install 7-zip, Google Chrome, Zoom, and VLC all in one shot. And so I saw that there was some questions in there about sort of staging policies and staging actions. And so this is one way that you can do that is you can use custom fields to essentially orchestrate the actions to occur in a step sequence. Like, for example, doing your device configuration first and then moving over and doing your application deployment. And then there could be something else that you need to do after that. Automation is something that I think benefits people in very specific situations, even something like device onboarding here, where I see a lot of people saying that they deal with the same issues with user provisioning, with device provisioning. The individual flavors of what you have to do change depending on your specific organization. So even though we can broadly agree that onboarding new devices is a time-consuming process, the exact permutations of what everyone is going to do does slightly change here. And so hopefully you can see that there's a lot of different options for how you can orchestrate and stage everything using both conditions, compound conditions, and the scheduled automations. With that, we can move over to our next example, which is going to be on end user requests. So with the 6.0 release of NinjaOne, which everybody should have now, we introduced the ability to launch automations from the sys tray. So let me go ahead and remagnify my screen here. And then we'll go into the sys tray branding and we'll look at this example of the NinjaOne sys tray. Now you can see we've got a whole slew of options here. The one that I really want to focus on is going to be the self-service section right here. And this is really handy because you can now delegate automations that you have within NinjaOne to be initiated by the end user. However, this allows them to execute these actions in a different context than the actual user's context. So for example here, when I install Google Chrome, I can have this automation be executed as system because NinjaOne has those permissions. However, I don't need to expose any credentials to the end user, so you're able to expose these automations. The end user can run those automations in an elevated context. However, because the technician is controlling what that action is, that means it's secure. It's being vetted by the administrator. You're not just making somebody an admin and hoping they do the right thing. You are giving them very specific actions that you have authorized and allowed them to go ahead and perform, like installing Google Chrome here. And you can, of course, I should mention this, you can run sequential automations here. So if I wanted to have multiple things occur, you can absolutely do that. I might, we already have the notification message built in here that Google Chrome is installing, but maybe I want to add in another message using the display pop-up here that says, hey, Google Chrome has completed the installation. And so now that, it's done, you're good to go. So you do have the option here to have sequential automations if you have a need for that. And so we can see, self-service application installation, great. However, this is really useful for end user troubleshooting. And so right here, this is one that we actually leverage here at Ninja. You can see the update Zoom one. Right here in my sys tray from Ninja, you can see that the self-service fix that we have here is to update Zoom. And so this whole company runs on Zoom. You can see this is where we're hosting this webinar. All our salespeople, they're always calling on Zoom. And so making sure that people have a up-to-date version of Zoom and they can easily go through the update process. This is a very nice on-demand method. Obviously, the ideal is that Zoom is being regularly patched through NinjaOne already, but there are certain circumstances where Zoom will release an update and it needs to be performed automatically. And this is a great self-service option so that the end user can do that themselves, and one that I do leverage from time to time myself. Now, other options here could be running the system performance check. So for example, if somebody is experiencing an issue on their device, you may want to have them run the system performance check so that you have a snapshot of what the device's performance looked like at the time that the end user reported an issue. Now, I'll go back into another example from my movie theater days, which is that we leveraged a tool called mRemote. mRemote was a network connections manager. So it could manage your connections for RDP, it could manage your connections for VNC, it could manage your HTTP connections. And so whenever I would go into a movie theater, I could have preloaded setup essentially so that I could easily connect to all the IP addresses using the appropriate credentials in one application. And this worked great. However, there was a slight problem, which is that mRemote, because it was a free tool, didn't always get updated and had some bugs. And one of those bugs was that it would corrupt the configuration file. And so I would have people calling me at least once a month saying, "Hey, I'm having a problem. mRemote is not working." And generally, what that meant is that the configuration file had been corrupted, and I then had to provide a backup of the configuration file that I maintained. I had to remote in and perform all of that to them so that they were good to go. So what I would have done if I'd had Ninja is I would have stored the XML file in a NinjaOne documentation field or in a NinjaOne organization custom field. And so that way, whenever somebody needed to generate a new configuration file, they could go to the sys tray, they could click on this option, and this would go ahead and download the XML file from the NinjaOne custom field. It would create and output a XML file locally on the device. And so there was no need for me to become involved. The end user would be able to go ahead and create this configuration file, open it up using mRemote, and they would be able to operate. And so they were no longer relying on me. If I was on a plane, if I was busy with a different, more important task, and I didn't have the option to go ahead and dial in and help them out in that exact moment. So this would have been a huge time saver for me. Another good example of this, a repetitive task or call that I got all the time was Windows 7 update files. They would not purge, and so the device would just run out of disk space. And so giving them a safe option to go ahead and purge a certain directory that's known to clog up with files would be another good way to do self-service elimination of low disk space tickets. And hopefully everybody has a nice screenshot here of the sys tray. And I saw a couple of requests in there. A couple other options here that I did want to discuss. One is the concept of raising a hand for assistance. So this is really easy. We get this request from people who say, how do I identify devices where somebody does need assistance? And so this usually gets phrased to me as, I want somebody to be able to click something and it raises a hand and it identifies that device on the dashboard. And so all that this does is it will write a hand emoji into a custom field, and I can then look at that from a device search group so that I can see, hey, where is there somebody who currently is requesting assistance? You could also monitor this as a condition. So instead of using the help request form that we have right here, you can see it. Let's say you don't want them to have to enter in any information. You just want them to be able to click a button and essentially it creates a ticket or otherwise notifies a technician. You can instead use this option here and then monitor for the custom field being filled as a condition. And so this would be essentially a one-click ability for them to create an alert or create a ticket without having to then go and fill out a form. So something we just frequently hear a request for. And so you're able to build that out using these automations here. And then lastly, here we have something that starts to enter more into the realm of collecting end user experience data. This one is extremely basic. All that this does is it generates a pop-up box on the end user's device, and it says, hey, are you having a good experience? Are you having a bad experience? And you can click yes or no, and then it writes that into a custom field. And so that's a great way. I'll say it's a framework for how you can go ahead and collect additional information from your end users to find out more about what their experience is like. And so if somebody is having a negative experience, they could go ahead and just click no on this little prompt here. And that would be a way for you to potentially collect that data over time to know, hey, if somebody is reporting a negative experience on this device consistently, we need to go ahead and take a closer look here. And this does leverage a PowerShell module. Kelvin from CyberDrain. It uses his run as user module, which allows you to run a PowerShell script in a system context and then into a user session so that you're able to collect information from the user and then return it to a system context so that you can actually interface with your custom fields. Most users these days, they aren't going to be able to directly interface with custom fields if you run something as the current logged on user. And that is because the executable with a binary that we use to interact with custom fields is in an admin only directory. So if you did want to collect information from the end user, you do need to leverage some kind of running run as user PowerShell module in order to be able to execute code in a end user context while executing the script as system from NinjaOne. And so that would ultimately give you the most flexibility. Excuse me. So a lot of really good options here. Go ahead and close out and move on to our final example, which is on taking information and surfacing it into NinjaOne more easily so that you can report and essentially do everything that you need to do on a regular basis. And so one thing that I've had to deal with in the past is essentially patch reporting, ensuring that all your cumulative updates are installed. And so what I've done here is I'm leveraging an API framework. It was created by Luke Whitelock, who is a product manager here at NinjaOne. He oversees custom fields and our ITSM tools. And I'll actually go ahead and post a link to his website, which I do pretty much every webinar, I feel like at this point. Luke's a really smart guy. And essentially, this is calls it an automated documentation server. I usually just call it an automation server or an API server. And what this allows you to do is it's just a framework for how you can securely interface with the NinjaOne API and other APIs without exposing your API credentials to just anybody. The concept is that you create a device like this one here, my API server. And this has a unique device role, and this ensures that anybody who's not a system administrator does not see this device. It can't see the API credentials that the device is using. And so you're able to orchestrate all of this through NinjaOne while eliminating the access to this device from your lower level technicians. It's important that you run this code on a secure VM that you control. It could be a server, it could be a workstation, it could be a cloud VM, it could be a physical machine. The important thing is that it's something that physically and virtually, only NinjaOne system administrators are going to be able to access. This can't be an endpoint that just anybody can walk into a room and be able to access that. Now, what we're doing here is we are running a couple of different actions that are going to run on a recurring basis, interfacing with the NinjaOne API, processing that data in a customized way that I want, and then writing that back into NinjaOne custom fields, writing it into NinjaOne documentation, or writing it into NinjaOne knowledge base. So let's go ahead and take a look at one of these examples here, which is essentially tracking cumulative updates. So let's go back here and let's go ahead and look, let's say, at this organization right here. And then we'll go into documentation, apps and services, and then I'll come down here to my cumulative update patch report. And essentially what this script does is it checks across all the patch installations and it looks for cumulative updates. And then it creates a little table that shows me where the device has or has not had a cumulative update for that month. And so here we can see we had a bad month in December. We didn't have any of our patches installed. Nobody got a cumulative update. So we have a 0% success rate. However, if we go back and we come into February, we can see we have a much better success rate here. You can see that these 4 devices have their cumulative update, but we can see that these 2 devices don't have it. And so this provides me a great view at a glance that shows me where devices haven't had an update that I would expect them to have every single month. Now, of course, we have our own patch reporting. We can come in and take a look at patch compliance from this view here. We can see where there are missing patches. We can see where there are pending patches. We know what the state of patch compliance is across all the devices in this organization. However, if you're looking for something specific, and I have heard this request about specific cumulative update patch reporting, we can then use the API to essentially process that data and surface it very easily so that I can very quickly and easily check to see who has the cumulative update and who doesn't. This is something that is in our Discord, so I will go ahead and pop that link in there again. So if you are curious on using this sort of script to report on cumulative updates, this is a great way to do that. So just pop that Discord invite in there. Now, there are a lot of other things you can do here, patch installation reports. I like this one just because it gives you each patch that was installed in this organization on a line item right here. And you can also see this in NinjaOne knowledge base here. If I did need a sort of global view of everything, right here, I can expand this out and I can see every single patch that was installed. It looks like this is from December, so I'm probably getting November's updates right here. And so I can see every single patch that was installed. I can see when it was installed in Linux time, so that's not extremely useful. And I can also see the KB number here. So this is just an example of how you can go ahead and take information from Ninja. You can reprocess it to meet your specific needs and your specific use cases. Go back and show one more example here. Which is script execution. This is also a great way to track the execution of certain automations at scale across all of your devices. So if we come down here to script execution report, I can see right here, I want to check on the status of the system performance check that I'm running across all the devices in this organization. And so in this case, I can see that I ran it across 2 different devices and they both failed. And so I can see the nature of those failures very easily right here. Why was this a problem? And then I'm able to go ahead and take action on those specific devices. So this is really useful as just a framework for being able to tell where something went wrong. Where did something run and then didn't execute the way that I would expect? Uh, and again, this is also a script that is posted on Discord. So this is something that everyone has access to. It does work. I have tested it in a lot of different environments. So if you are interested in tracking something like this, tracking patch installations, this is a great way to have that happen. I would also mention that if you are using NinjaOne documentation, the knowledge base articles can be shared with not just through public links like I showed earlier, but you can also share these with end users so that when they log in, they can see it. And the way that I look at this is that means that when somebody logs in, you can basically create a dashboard for them. This doesn't really look super pretty, but this would be an example of the sort of data that you could provide somebody. They're able to log in every month. They can look at a report. It might look like this. It might look like the cumulative update report I showed earlier with a nice pie chart and bar graph. So you have a lot of options here with taking this information and surfacing it not just to your technicians, but also to your end users or to people who aren't going to be doing anything technical, but need to kind of see a report or see the status of a particular action. Well, I haven't been looking at the questions, Jonathan, but I imagine we might have quite a few questions here.
We do. Thank you so much, Jeff, and thanks everybody for jumping in and making this so active. We love it. And one thing I guess I will suggest, we got about 10 minutes left. We may not get to everything, and so I just wanted to suggest across the board, if you haven't been able to check out our YouTube. And it sounds like a basic suggestion, but man, we have so many webinars like this one. The recording will be there as well. Tons of webinars from Jeff. We also have live streams that we've done, and I'm going to show you an example of one that got into the sys tray, and I dropped a link to it. We had a customer come on, and this is really, again, we've been talking about Discord all the time, and I feel like a little guilty being the community guy talking about Discord, but that's because that's really what I love to promote. But this came about because one of our customers said, "Hey, I'm doing some cool stuff with this tray. I would like to see what other customers are doing." And so we launched a live stream, talked about it, and then in addition to that, we I can actually pull up the Discord for a second if you don't mind, Jeff. And
Absolutely.
I can just show a quick example for those who aren't familiar. It's really it's not a scary place, I promise. But I just wanted to pull this up just to show that this is an example. We included a sys tray channel for that, and this is the hope was okay. Can people not just you're getting information from us, but can fellow users and folks who are really getting into doing cool stuff with Ninja, they can share what they're doing and we can learn from each other. And so here's a good example of that. So again, just wanted to plug that a little bit and give folks who haven't seen Discord, if you're not a Discord user, give you a little example of what it looks like. So just wanted to share that really quickly. Okay, so in terms of questions, oh yes, there's so many things to plug. Okay, how about we do this, Jeff? We'll rifle through about well, how many questions we can in 5 minutes, and then stick around, folks. There's a winner to announce for a prize, and we have a couple of upcoming events that I want to plug really quickly too. In terms of questions, so I've been answering some live. Let's see here. I got one that was based around Copilot. I'm sure that this is a typical. They're not alone in this, right? And I know we've had some folks talking about this in Discord and asking, "Hey, does anyone have a script where I can just automate disabling Copilot?" I haven't seen someone share a full script for this yet. I know there's registry keys that you could be modifying. I think the traditional approach is either using Intune or GPOs. But Jeff, any thoughts on that one? Um,
Only that I sympathize. I know that there are quite a few people who want to eliminate that. And as you said, it is kind of a moving target.
okay,
Microsoft has not always made that very easy to happen. I'm not aware of anything that is a silver bullet that I could say I know reliably is going to work very well.
yeah,
But I would certainly check out the Discord because if you are going to find the answer, it's a pretty good bet it's going to come from the Discord because we have not just uh, NinjaOne users who are very experienced in the IT world, but we also have everybody else who has a incredibly diverse array of experience who's also pitching in to help out. So yeah, I would certainly recommend checking out the Discord. I am not seeing anything kind of with a quick search, but
yeah.
I'm sure that somebody has something out there if it's possible.
Okay, cool. Well, kind of related. So Isaac just dropped in a question about how about installing all those default applications? So like the bloatware is, I think, the official industry term for this. And we actually do have a script in Ninja in the administration under in the script template library. I know that there is a remove bloatware a script that's baked in that you can do.
Right here. Yeah. Would strongly recommend this. This is, again, something that saves you a mountain of time, especially if you're doing what I sometimes had to do. Not everything came directly from a manufacturer like Dell. Sometimes I had to go to Best Buy and I had to buy something real quick for a laptop. And so having a script like this that would remove bloatware is incredibly useful. So yeah, would highly recommend checking out this one here. I know that there are also a lot of ones that I've seen on GitHub. I think there might be a Linus Tech Tips one, if I'm not mistaken. He might have one. But yeah, there's no shortage of removing bloatware scripts that you will find online. But great starting point is the one that's already in Ninja, is already known to be QA'd and tested. So yeah, would highly recommend this one here from the template library.
Yeah, we do have a question about well, does it block it from reinstalling? Um, I know that there's some things you can do around that.
Yeah, I don't know that this is going to block it from uninstalling. So it is possible that if in subsequent feature updates, Microsoft says this has to be installed, I imagine it probably would be redeployed. So I would say that, there's also nothing wrong with running this on a recurring basis as well. So if you did need to have a need to run this, not just at the inception of the device, but, periodically, maybe whenever there's been a new feature update, you could absolutely automate that. But I would certainly want to test there and confirm that, applications have the potential to be added back in after the fact. I know that, of course, your end users could always add in some applications, but yeah, I would definitely recommend some testing with that.
Absolutely. Okay, and so there's just to wrap things up. Sorry guys, if there's we are gonna keep all these questions that you've been submitting. And I'll make it a point to get back to folks because there's some specific ones, a lot of sys questions, because you were showing that, Jeff, and people being eager to see things. So if you a good starting point is checking out that live stream that we did. One question that we did answer, and Jeff, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but Joel is asking, is there a way to have it enabled for only a specific group of people that are all under a single organization? That was a very popular request. My sense is that it's no, but maybe you'll correct me.
Unfortunately, it is
Yeah.
correct. You can't do that for subsets of devices within an organization. However, what you can do is you can have the sys enabled only for a specific organization. So if you did want to take a pilot group of people from an organization, just go ahead and create a new one here. This could be, pilot organization sys and you would have the option there to go ahead and give them either a different sys or they could have it enabled, whereas your production organization is not going to have it enabled. So there is an option there for that, but we only allow the enablement or disablement and customization of the sys at the org level. You can't do it at the location level. So that would be something you would need to do is move the devices to a different org in order to have that level of fine-grained control.
Awesome. Okay, and then just to wrap this up a little bit, people were asking about scripting, right? So just in terms of, are there? We had a couple questions that are, do we have any other resources that we can share around this in PowerShell in particular? And so I'm going to drop one. We got a course that we teamed up with Adam Bertram, who some folks may know as Adam the Automator. And he did a course for us that's basically PowerShell getting started. And so if you have you have team members who you think that would be useful for, that's completely free. I think you do have to enter in your email, but it's a free training course. It's 30 minutes for getting started. In addition to that, for the past couple of years, we've made you've been shadow banned, Brandon. I'll have to follow up with you. So there's the PowerShell Advent Calendar, and so this links to scripts in our script hub. And again, all these are going to be, most of these are going to be included in the template library. And then there is one of these posts that links to a repository of like 500 PowerShell scripts. I mean, there's loads of them. So I think with that, Jeff, we've got just a few minutes left. I'm going to pull up a couple of links for upcoming things, but anything else you wanted to share before we break?
I know I just saw that there are people looking for repositories that are trusted
Yeah.
for PowerShell scripting. Obviously, I can't recommend the template library enough because we've got people on staff who do nothing but make sure that that is awesome.
Yep.
However, would also recommend Discord. A lot of really good PowerShell scripters in Discord. Mikey O'Toole, the Prince
Yeah.
of PowerShell. Uh, and I would also recommend the dojo as well. So
Yep.
going to the question mark in the top right, going to the dojo, there's the community script form there. Both of those are community repositories, so they are not being checked in the same way that the template library is. But I have found so many good things that I've been able to either use wholesale or repurpose for my own particular needs from Discord, from Dojo. So yeah, I would start with those three places. That's gonna be the top of your funnel to go and then find everything else that you need to, or anything else that you might need to find for your scripting needs.
Awesome. Okay, a couple upcoming things. We have a little game that we're launching. This happens to be launching on April 1st. And is this a prank or not? You'll have to find out. You'll have to go to ninjaone.com/IT quest on April 1st and figure out if we're being for real about this or not. For anyone who is, again, needs the expanded, the zoomed in version of Zoom, this may spark some nostalgia for you. So that's one thing I wanted to share. Another thing is we have World Backup Day is coming up. So that's March 31st. It's next Monday. and we're going to be doing a interactive role-playing tabletop scenario to celebrate World Backup Day. We call it Backups and Bandwidth. I highly encourage you to check this out. It's going to be a lot of fun. We have our product manager of backup, Dan Myers, who will be leading the party. He's our backup dungeon master. And we've got some folks who will be joining us as players and walking through a real disaster recovery scenario. Well, real. So that's something I hope that you'll check out. And then last but not least, because of this topic, there's so much well, let's get that one off the screen. There's so much to cover here. If you're interested in automating more things, Jeff was a part of an awesome webinar called Building a Culture of Automation. And it walks through here's how to start and think about what are the tasks that you should be prioritizing for automation, what makes good candidates, how can you get your team involved, things like that. So I wanted to give that a shout out. And now without further ado, let's announce the winner. We have Allison Grant. Congratulations. You are the winner of our giveaway here, and you're going to have the choice of a few different prizes to reduce your IT misery. And that is the relaxation focused things. I think there's some relaxation kits, a turntable, some other cool things. So we'll reach out to you for that. But thank you everybody for taking time to join us on this Monday. Hopefully this gets you on the track to reducing your IT misery. Jeff, thank you as always. And we will see you on another NinjaOne webinar soon.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.